Do you want money? Do you feel like someone else should give you their money? Robbing them, that would be illegal. But the law doesn't say you can't take it from them. Most people are familiar with the concept of a lawsuit, but few know how the process actually works behind the scenes. Today, for no reason at all, I'm going to be walking through the steps of suing someone or a company. And I'm not a lawyer, so I don't profit off of leaving out important details. Alright, so the first thing you need is a reason or a legal claim. This is something that breaks the law or violates your rights. You can't just sue anyone for no reason. So I'm told. The statute of limitations on suing someone is 1 to 4 years, depending upon the case. So the sooner you start, the better. Valid reasons to sue somebody would be something like them causing you an injury, directly or indirectly, or breaching a contract. Next, we need to take note of how you were negatively impacted, so how you were wronged in this situation. This is important because now we can figure out what kind of case this is going to be. First, we have small claims, which is cheap and fast compared to the alternatives. This is going to be small petty stuff, like you lending your friend $2,000 and he's not paying you back, or somebody sells you a faulty product and won't refund you. Property damage usually falls into this category if it's under a certain amount, like small car crashes where the cost is only a few $1,000s, or like if somebody hits your mailbox. If your case is in small claims court, you don't need a lawyer, but you can have one, which is usually a good thing. Some states discourage or limit attorney usage in small claims court, so you don't need one per se if you were like genuinely wronged and there's clear proof of it. Now, you could make the argument that you're limiting your due process rights by limiting your attorney usage, but not necessarily, because small claims court is designed for like petty disputes so that you don't need a lawyer. And it's also meant to be cheap, so if one side has a lot more money than the other side, it's not supposed to make that big of a difference. It does sometimes, but it's not supposed to. Where you definitely do want a lawyer is if you're suing someone in state court. These are going to be relatively large cases, like your car being totaled and the other person not having insurance and refusing to pay. And the big dog cases go to federal court. For this to be the case, the other party has to have violated your rights under federal law. You're going to want the best lawyer possible. Nobody wants federal charges, especially corporations, and they have a lot more money than you do, so you're gonna need some resources. A lot of cases that take place in federal court are business v business, not person v business, because this is where stuff like copyright law and like the big business rules come from. So a lot of them are company versus company and not person v person. And because federal court is like, the upper leagues and it's very expensive, most of the cases that were person versus company become what's called class action lawsuits, which means like just a bunch of people sue one company at one time. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you personally. Once we know what court our lawsuit is going to take place in, we can find a lawyer. These cost money. So in this case, it's an investment. You might want to be sure that your case is valid before proceeding to the next step. This is where we get the ball rolling. Now you're going to draft a complaint. This is an official document that starts the case, and it includes who you are, the plaintiff, who you're suing, the defendant, what happened, the facts, what law was broken, and what you seek from this suit, so money or legal action. Once you, or better, your lawyer, has written up this document and submitted it to the court clerk, either online or in person, there's a small filing fee that ranges anywhere from $100 to $500, which is a lot of people's paychecks. But anywho, they give you a case number. It's a legal requirement to notify the other party. This is done by a server, a sheriff, or certified mail. This is really important because if it's not done correctly, your entire case can get thrown out, and you can't sue someone twice for the same thing. It's not allowed. The defendant typically has 20 to 30 days to respond. They either file an answer admitting or denying guilt, or a motion to dismiss and argue that your case is completely invalid and you're stupid. This is where it gets juicy. Next, we enter the discovery phase, which is the good part. Both sides gather evidence in the form of documents and receipts. This is where like 90% of the show suits takes place. During discovery, both parties will meet and have a deposition, which is a recorded interview under oath, so lying is a big no-no. Side note, I feel like a lot of people lie under oath and we just never find out, because you're not gonna lie under oath for something that you would get caught lying about. But if you did lie under oath, you're never gonna confess to lying under oath. So we're never going to actually know the number of people that lie under oath. Anyway, in a deposition, you can interview a witness, an expert, or, most commonly, the other party. It is super common to have lawyers use the plaintiff's own words from a deposition as evidence against them in court. Here's how the deposition process works. During the deposition, one of the parties will decide, this person knows something that could help my case, and they'll send a formal notice for the deposition. If you're already part of the case, this is called a notice of deposition, which sounds nice. If you're a third party, like a witness, it's called a subpoena, which has a negative connotation and legally requires you to show up. Lawyers will agree on a location and a time. A lot of depositions nowadays take place on Zoom, which is really lame. Like, how much passion can you really get through a Zoom call, you know? How can I really convey my arguments through a Zoom call? Yeah, I watch too much TV. After the lawyers make plans, they schedule a cuck. Court reporter. A court reporter works for the court, who would have guessed? And his job is to swear you in under oath and record everything word for word. At these heavily supervised meet and greets, lawyers are going to request information related to the case, like records, photos, emails, anything they could possibly use to help their side of the case. If you have a good lawyer, they will prepare you for these depositions and how to respond to the questions you're asked under oath. Remember, the other side can use what you say against you, so it's important that you answer these questions correctly and honestly because you're under oath. At this point, either party can offer a settlement. This is basically an offer from either side to negotiate away and settle the case. Usually, this takes the form of money, and lawyers will throw settlements back and forth. 95% of civil cases end in settlement, which if you watch like any legal show ever, you would find really hard to believe. Not a whole lot of cases actually go to trial. A settlement doesn't necessarily mean won or lost. It depends on the terms that you settled on. If the terms are favorable to you, I guess you won, GG's. But if they're not, then you still technically didn't lose if you walk away with something. It really depends on your perspective and the actual circumstances. All the settlement means is that the judicial system didn't have to get involved. You guys settled it legally on your own. The thing is, lawyers have a heavy incentive to settle. Trials can take months and years, and settlement is cheaper for both the law office as well as the client paying for their time. Another huge factor that makes them want to settle is that a lot of lawyers work on contingency, meaning they get paid only if you get paid. And even if you pay for one, they likely get a bonus whether you win or lose. So if they settle, they get guaranteed payment now, and if they go to trial, they risk getting less or nothing. A settlement also looks really good on a lawyer's record when they're being compared to other lawyers than a loss, so another reason they'd rather settle than risk a loss. This isn't to say settlements can't be logical. They can be, especially if your lawyer is well practiced. After discovery, both sides will have presented their evidence. A good lawyer can see holes in both cases, so they recognize to an extent when something is a winner or a loser. If something is a winner and they know it, they can use that to leverage a better settlement, avoiding the trial and getting you the reward that you want. They can also see holes in your case, meaning that if your case isn't strong enough, they can still get you a settlement better than losing at trial and getting nothing. This additionally helps build the lawyer's reputation with other clients because the resolution is quick, it's fast. There isn't the long, stressful trial for the client to go through, so they're usually more satisfied with a good settlement. So it's cheaper, faster, easier, less stressful, and makes the lawyer look good. It's no wonder the amount of cases that end in settlement is so high. But the lawyer does have an incentive to settle. So if your case truly deserves a trial, don't let the lawyer trick you into taking less and not taking the risk, especially if they're not prestigious or work at a smaller firm that wouldn't want to take on the paperwork. But your lawyer is also more educated than you, so you should probably listen to them. But also don't, because they twist things in their favor for a living, so. If a case actually does go to trial, a judge or a jury will be the deciding factor. In trial, as you probably know, both sides will present evidence on why they're right and the other guy is wrong. After they do this dance back and forth a couple of times, the jury or the judge will make a decision on the verdict. The winner will usually get money and the loser will have to pay damages. Hopefully the damages cover your legal costs, because even if you win, if they don't cover your costs, you just lost money. So, after the outcome, if the loser feels that the verdict given was wrong, they can file for an appeal. But this has to be done really quickly, like right after trial. An appeal is not a second trial. There's no new evidence. The lawyer needs to argue that the trial was flawed and the justice was falsely deemed because of a violation of his client's due process. This is a conflict of interest or some kind of bias being shown on the case. Something has to be wrong with the procedure, not just this is wrong because it hurt me. The judges will ask the lawyers questions on why the verdict should be changed, and the judges will come to one of three conclusions. Either your verdict will get changed, or it doesn't. Or it gets sent back for a new trial. Appeals are important because it can help ensure that the trial is fair and that the verdict wasn't just based on which lawyer made the better argument. I mean, it's not foolproof, it still is who made the better argument, it's just making sure they did it legally. Actual appeals are rare though, and when they do happen, they're incredibly expensive. Most appeals end in the verdict being upheld, so there's a high chance you lose more money. So after all of this, you will be counting your winnings or counting your days until your next paycheck. Or the way worse third option, which is counting the days that you've been in jail. I want to make it clear that I'm not telling anyone to sue anyone without probable reason. I made this video purely to discuss how court proceedings work. While lawsuits can serve justice, they can also ruin lives, so you shouldn't abuse your legal power to sue somebody. I talked mostly about how to sue an individual. It gets much messier when businesses and corporations sue each other because both sides are huge and have a lot of resources. It's like when overpowered Dragon Ball characters fight each other, but like with papers and money instead of energy or whatever. I plan on making a video going into more detail about how big trials go down and the court proceedings behind them. So if you're interested, check out my page. But other than that, I'm out.